Hello, my name is Cecilia, and I'm the director of Global Ballet Teachers and a current soloist dancer and teacher here at the Pacific Northwest Ballet in Seattle, Washington, USA. And we are joined here with Andrew Holdsworth, who is a London-based music producer and engineer, as well as a ballet pianist who has produced all sorts of music, but most importantly here for Global Ballet Teachers, the latest syllabus for the Royal Academy of Dance, RAD. And look to our previous video for more in-depth bio on him, but we're just so pleased to have him here sharing his extensive knowledge. And we are introducing this video series and course called Intro to Music for Ballet Class. And it's vital for ballet teachers to understand music and the role that it plays in dance training. So in the previous video, we talked about music theory and dance rhythms. And in this video, we're going to be talking about music specifically for ballet class. And we're going to talk through different ballet steps and the music that would be appropriate for those. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Andrew to give a little bit of intro, and then we're going to do a demo music playing combo. And yeah, enjoy. So Andrew, take it away.
Okay, so we're going to go through a standard ballet class in the order that you would generally do it. Start with warm-up, plies, tendus, glisses, rond de jambe, fondues, frappes, all that kind of stuff. And then we'll do some center stuff, and then we'll do some allegro at the end. So, and we're going to give you a couple of different musical examples for each exercise, just so you get a sense of how different kinds of music might affect the way that you dance to them. So we might, for instance, give you a 3/4 for your plies, or we might give you something in 4. You'll be able to see the difference. I will try and count. So I find it very difficult to count and play at the same time, but I will try and count, and so you get a sense of what time signatures things are in, and to some extent what tempo. I'll try and give you some idea of the dance styles that I'm going to play. If I'm going to play a jig, I'll say it's going to be a jig. I'll play some pop music. I'll play some classical music. I might even play some Baroque music. I might even play some jazz. I'm not quite sure yet, but we'll give you a few different examples of things that you can try in class. And at the end, I'm going to give you some ideas for where to find this music. If you're looking online, if you're looking on Spotify or on Apple or on Amazon or whatever, where to find music to download, classical music and kind of poppy music and ballet music and all this kind of stuff, what search terms to use and that kind of thing. So I think we'll start with a warm-up. I'm going to try and play different kinds of music for different ages of children, so you get some sense of what you might play for younger children, what you might use, what kind of music you might use for younger children to older children. So with younger children, if we're going to do a warm-up, I typically do a cardio warm-up to start with, which could be this kind of thing, which is fast-moving semi-quavers. If you're telling your pianist what to do, it was a 2/4. Or classic kind of skippy. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. This is a 6/8. And so on. 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 and 2. I'll do a 2/4, a warm-up for little kids. Okay, here we go. Another kind of warm-up that I might do for maybe older dancers is maybe let's say maybe something really bluesy. Slow jazzy 4. You could use Summertime or other jazz songs in that kind of feel. It's swung. Okay, let's do some plies. So I'll start with a plies in 3. waltz. It's in 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to play you another Plies, which is actually from the Interfoundation syllabus of the RAD. So this is in 4. It's got a 4 feel. 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. I find generally 90% of the time teachers want 3/4 to do Plies to, but not everybody does, so it's useful to have some 4/4s as well. We'll move on to Tendus in a second. Cecilia, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, mentioning the count into any track of music that you have. It's a really great way to get the students kind of focused into what combination they're doing with a little bit of preparation. So you'll see at the start of every combination that we do, I'll do a nice arm, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's a 4 count intro. I just counted starting from 5 to 8, but it's still to 4, so you can count 1, 2, 3, 4. And so it's just a great way for your students to get ready for the combinations. And so if your students are facing the bar, they're gonna at more beginner level. You have them have their arms down, 5, 6, back up 7, and hands on the bar. So just depending on what level your students are, you would find some sort of port de bras to do to get their hands ready on the bar, or in the center, they have their arms in al second. So as you're hearing these different tracks, you'll hear Andrew playing a little bit of an intro. It's for me to get ready for the combination and know what tempo he's playing. So yeah, it was really interesting to do Plies, to do 2 different tempos, but same movement quality and everything. So yeah, let's move on to Tendus.
Okay, I can play all sorts of music for Tendus. Tendus is one of the most kind of flexible things. You can play 2s, you can play 6/8s, you can play 3s. You can, for really light things, use the top of the piano. You can use really kind of light stuff, or you can do rags, you can do tangos. So I'll give you a kind of really light kind of, it's a kind of habanero kind of thing. Beyonce fans out there? She never intended it to sound like that, but there you go. So, or you can have something a bit more meaty, like this time. See how this looks, see how this feels. Which one? I'll give you the standard rag that everybody knows. This is difficult because this intro is twice as long as you would normally do for a ballet class. What I would normally do is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, or as Cecilia would say, and every person in ballet for some reason starts 5, 6, 7, 8. I get some very funny looks because I do a lot of pop sessions with musicians, and I always count them in 5, 6, 7, 8, and they all go, what? Because musicians don't ever count in 5, 6, 7, 8. It doesn't make any sense to them, but that's what I do, so I'm going to do it. So I'll give you just a 5, 6, 7, 8 intro for this one. 5, 6, 7, 8. There are lots of other things. We could do 6/8, but I think we'll save some of those for things like glisses and jetés, all that kind of stuff. So is there anything you'd like me to demonstrate, Cecilia? Or is that enough?
Yeah, no. So I tried to demonstrate different speeds of tendu. So the first one I went more slowly. And then the second one, I added a little bit of accent to it. So he's counting da 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 da. So I went da, hold and in and hold. So it's just a different energy. So again, you can play with this as teachers as you're creating your combinations, but the music's playing one thing, your body can be doing something else. So it's fun kind of play between. So just wanted to point out that I did that, but yeah.
Okay, so I think there are certain exercises like Petit, battement, Frappe, all that kind of stuff, and to some extent Petit allegro, which have got a fairly set tempo. You can't really play any slower because the kids will fall over. You can't really play any faster because no one will be able to do it. But things like tendus, honestly, as a pianist or someone who's providing music for a ballet, the teachers can find something to do at lots of different speeds. So in a way, have fun with your tendu music. That's what I would say about that, because there are certain exercises that you can't have that much fun with. In the same way, anyway. Okay, so let's do some kind of glisses and jetés and that kind of thing. I'm just going to play a couple of things. I'll start with a 6/8, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry about that. I haven't played that for 10 years. Okay, so that's a kind of 6/8, quite bright. I'm going to give you Master of the House, which is from Les Mis. Okay, 5, 6, 7, and. A bit more of a kind of drivey thing. You could tell I was using, you can see this, so you can tell I was using the left hand of the piano, using the kind of bottom register. Anything you want to be light, find some music that, you know, is up there. I'll get your pianist to play everything up an octave. If you want it to be dark, a bit darker and a bit more marching, a bit more kind of accented, then, you know, find something with a beat at the bottom, like Master of the House.
So yeah, just again, using different energies. So for beginners, you probably want to break it down, tendu, dégage, tendu, fifth dégage or something. And I showed that in the demonstration. So just finding ways of doing different speeds for dégages. You can do them slowly, quickly, depending on no matter what the music speed is. So that's all I want to say.
Okay. Rond de jambe, 90%, again, no, 95% of the time, people want this to a waltz. Oh, not, well, yeah, it's slow, fairly slow 3/4. Okay, let me think. If you can find a piece in 3/4, get on your Spotify playlist, get 10 pieces, that tempo of maybe, well, a bit faster, a bit slower, whatever, in 3, then you can't go wrong with Rond de jambe, I think. I haven't got any other examples in 4 because I think it's relatively rare. You can do it to various other bits of music. You can try it.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add to rond de jambe is there's typically time at the end of the track for balances and port de bras. So just be aware of that. So you can do a port de bras front back, side side, or around the world, or do a nice passe balance or coupe or sous-sus, really whatever position that's typically in a rond de jambe track. Just so you're aware of, like, why is this longer than all the other ones? Because of all of those elements that you add in on the end. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to move on to fondues, and I'm going to play a kind of tango version of a popular song from Trolls. 5, 6, 7, 8. of kind of triplet feel to it. 1 and 2 and so those are the kind of fairly standard fondue types of music.
I think the only thing to add there is in fondue combinations, I usually like to add balances as well. So I did in the combination demonstration was a nice passe balance because it's calming music. You don't feel stressed sometimes doing balances during like fast music. It's like, oh, my shoulders are getting up, but calming music kind of makes you breathe and calm down. So just an idea to add in there. But yeah, moving on to frappes.
Right. Okay. So I was thrilled to learn that this piece is actually not in copyright. So I'm going to play Baby Shark. Every child knows this, and it always puts a smile on people's faces. So here we go. 5 and 6. Okay. 5, 6, 7, 8. And so on. I went into a hornpipe then because I wanted you to get a sense. I haven't discussed hornpipe. A sense that hornpipes can be useful for this kind of thing. Straight 2/4 music, hornpipe, wonderful. There's loads of them around. Sailor's hornpipe is one I played there. So search up hornpipe if you want to try something for that kind of speed. Okay.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd like to add is really accentuating like there's like a little bit of a spark to the music that even Andrew played, or definitely as Andrew played as an example. Usually frappe music has a bit of an accent, and that's what you can kind of tell your kids, students to listen to when they do the frappe exercise. So you can typically hear in frappe tracks how to do the frappe movement. So yeah, just hear out for that. But next is Petit battement, which is typically quite similar to frappe. So Andrew, tell us the difference.
Yeah, it is quite similar. I would normally play something quite, well, very similar, straight 2, or you can do it on a 6/8 as well. So I'm going to give you a 6/8 just as something different. 5, 6. Okay.
Yeah, and again, there, the accent, you hear it in the music. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And so it's very, very clear for the student and the pianist and the music and everything. So the clarity is what makes the movement clear as well.
Okay, so I'm going to play a couple of Adagio pieces. I'm going to play Always Remember This Way, which is a very standard 4/4. In fact, you can probably use this from the record. The only problem, I'll say something about this now. The only problem with taking songs from musicals and pop albums is that you often don't get, that's often not in 8-bar phrases, or if they are in 8-bar phrases, they might have an extended phrase going into the chorus or whatever. So it can be a bit tricky to predict phrase length. So you really must, if you're ever going to try this, if you're ever going to try it with a class, you need to kind of go through the exercise at home beforehand with a record. I'm talking about, you know, take your Lady Gaga record or whatever, just to make sure that it's actually an even count. If it isn't, you can always chop bits out on your computer if you're that way inclined, or find a different song that is in specific, you know, 8 count. So how will I play this? I think I'm going to play this with quite a lot of movement in the left hand. I'm going to give you a couple of contrasting things so you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, and see my left hand is doing a lot of work. It's not actually playing in triplets like it did with the Andrew Lloyd Webber piece in the other video. It's just kind of constant, which can be really useful. It's just constant movement. I'm going to contrast that with something that, let me think, is it the same speed? Okay, let's keep the same key as well. Right. This is a bit more of a kind of imperial adage. Watch the left hand. Okay, so that was a kind of boom, you can imagine the orchestra, double bass, the horn strings. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing with Adagio that I want to stress is you can typically, as Andrew was demonstrating, there's a lot of frill on top, but there is a very clear bass line. And so creating your combinations to that bass line, and then the frill on top is just the beautiful Adagio music. So keeping it really clear, and like, as I showed, you could do coupe on count 1, passe count 2, attitude, extend. So have things moving on those down beats.
Right. Okay. So we'll move on to grand battement. I'm going to do a 1 and 2 and 1. So I'm going to do a straight big 2. This is Take Me to Church, which is the song that I played last time, the last exercise, but this has got a completely different feel. So see if you can spot the tune. Same tune, different feel. Okay, here we go. 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's got a very, very clear accent on the 1. I'm going to contrast that with a piece that's in 3/4. So big waltz. There are loads of those around.
Yeah, typically grand battement is very like big and grand. So dun 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 dun. So it mirrors what your legs are doing. Obviously keeping your placement, I can go into all of that, but musically it's a big movement, big music for big movement. So pick music that's nice and grand to help big kicks happen. But yeah, now I think we're going to move on to either port de bras at the bar, but it can also be done in the center as your first kind of intro to center work. So Andrew, take it away.
Okay. Again, actually, there are lots of pop songs that can be used for port de bras. It's just off the shelf. Because there are kind of quite a lot of mellow kind of pop tunes. I'm going to actually play a couple. I'm going to play Love the Way You Lie by Rihanna in 3/4. I'm going to give you an example of how you might do it in 3. And then I'm going to do a really famous Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I'll just do it straight as it is in the movie. And I'll show you a couple of different things that you might do with the accompaniment, just so you get a sense of that. So we'll start with, okay, here we go. 6, 7, 8. Etc. I could play that all day. So let's try this. Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Let's think of a key. Anybody? C sharp. Was in my left hand, continuous movement. I'll get rid of that keep the movement in the left hand. You know, it really works with flowing accompaniments. I tend to find there are very specific circumstances where you might want something very static. In fact, almost like an adage kind of thing. You could do a port de bras for that. It brings out a different element in the dancing. But yes, that's it. A couple of different examples there.
No, I think these are my favorite musical pieces in class because it's just like you feel you can really dance, you can move, it's very flowy. There's usually a really lovely tune to it. And so when I'm doing my port de bras, I just feel like I'm like over the rainbow, just dancing in the clouds. So find music that the kids can have an imagination, especially younger kids, and you can add like scarves and hands or something fun, but just like motivational and inspirational music, I guess, is really good for like port de bras music. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'll do a couple of things in the center before we move on to pirouette. So I'll give you something swung, quite jazzy, and then we'll do something kind of a bit tango-y. So I'll do something quite light. Really standard 4/4 swung music. There's loads of it around. I'm going to contrast that with Welcome to Burlesque, one of those kind of really famous tangos. Okay, let's think of a key.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention in my demonstration, I started with the more advanced version, and then in the second tango, I went more beginner level with my hands on my hips. So just wanted to clarify like different tempos, but similar, like let's get ourselves on our legs and centered, very clear, calm music to help with tendus or dégages or kind of finding your balance in the center for the first time. So yeah.
All right, so we'll have a couple of examples of things that you might do pirouettes to. I'm going to give you a polonaise. We haven't done much of that yet. Let's find a polonaise. Oh, yes. Okay, can I play this one? So we'll start with a polonaise, and then I'll give you a waltz. No, I'll think of another key. Okay. So I'll now do a kind of waltzy thing for a pirouette. Which is probably what I get asked to do more than anything, a waltz of that kind of thing. Yeah, that kind of. But a polonaises are kind of fun. There's a certain drive to them, and it can really whip the kids around if you get them to focus on it. It's a massive accent on it. The waltz would tend not to be as accented.
Would you actually mind playing another pirouette combination? Because I did beginner level pirouette, then I did like kind of intermediate pirouette prep, and then I'd love to do more of like a waltzy traveling one, just to show how you can add movement into pirouette combinations as well.
I'm going to do Love Yourself. Okay, so you want a waltz again?
Yeah, so they're just like so many different types of pirouette combinations. There's stable, there's moving, there's beginner, there's advanced. So really just hearing the tempo, feeling clear beats will help the turns and help the students feel stable and doing things on the right counts. Yeah, so thank you for that.
All right, I'll give you a couple of adage examples. I could talk a little bit about tempo here, because when we were doing the RED music, we had to really think about tempo and how long different children can balance at different speeds, basically. Obviously, how the tempos for Petit Allegro, what, children jump higher as they get older, so pieces tend to be slower. But actually, when you're only 6 years old, you actually can jump pretty fast for your Petit Allegros. So with adage, what I always bear in mind is not too slow, particularly for younger children, because they just can't balance, and and they'll feel really bad. Yeah, what you might do for a professional might be really, really slow, and it looks, the better the slower it is, the better it looks. But with children, you don't necessarily get that kind of thing. So I'll give you a couple of adagios. I've got Nothing Compares to You and For Forever. So, okay. Okay, that was the kind of imperial adage that I alluded to in the previous talk. And I'm now going to play For Forever. 7, 8. Can you hear the flowing of the left hand? I could play that all day, I better not. Okay, so there are a couple of examples.
I just kept going because I love Adagio. But again, very similar to the port-de-bras combination. Like, these usually the ones that have really beautiful melodies on top. And so just being really clear with the counts, but also having this smooth upper body on top. So clear counts with the lower legs, smooth upper bodies. But yeah, I think we'll move on to pirouettes.
Tough turns, yeah? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do 2 fairly fast pieces in 2. I'll do one that's a bit like a coda, and then I'll do one that is a bit more swung and a bit slower. So, okay, the reason I'm not watching the screen, in case you're wondering, is that there's a lag. So if I watch the screen, I can't play in time. So got to assume that everything's looking great on the screen. Very straight, kind of 2/4, bum, chap, bum, chap, bum, chap, bum. You could do a kind of coda, or I'm also going to demonstrate it to single ladies. Bit slower. It's quite fast swing. Okay, was that useful to kind of sense the different speeds and kind of feels of the 2 pieces?
Yeah, no, I did. And I did a beginner pirouette from the corner, and then I did a more advanced one. So you can see how you can really break it down the step with the same rhythm and then go faster for the more advanced one. So that's what I tried to show in my demonstrations. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to Petit Allegro then. So let's start with the 6/8. This is a piece of Mozart. He didn't write it in 6, but I'm going to play it in 6. Okay, let's contrast that with if I just play a 2/4. It's just been Christmas, so I'm going to play a Christmas tune. Completely straight feel as opposed to the 6/8. And I'm now going to give you a 9/8, which is something completely different. And it needs a little bit of thought before you teach this, how you might prepare a step to it. But I'll give you an example. This is actually a song from West Side Story, but I've made it into 9 instead of 12. Certain pieces like a polonaise and a mazurka and a 9/8 need a count of 6 in. So you can't just count 4 in like you normally would. That was 9/8 because it was 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So with a 6/8 and a 2/4 and a 9/8, you can do pretty much any Petit allegro exercise really.
Yeah, and just changing up the rhythm. So like, again, holding an ensemble and then doing 2 fast ensembles. Again, you can play with the steps, even if the music is staying on an even beat. So utilizing that, but yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you a couple of examples for allegro. I'm going to do a waltz and I'm going to do what's called the choro, which is a kind of Brazilian kind of rhythm. So I'll start with a waltz. I'm going to now give you a Brazilian beat, which is exactly. There we go. So I wouldn't normally use that kind of rhythm in anything else in the ballet class. But that just gives you an example of that's quite an unusual rhythm in the left hand. I've got quite a lot of albums with quite a few choro pieces on. You can make pop songs into choro pieces quite easily because it's in 4. So you don't have to kind of take any beats out or extend any beats or elongate them or whatever. So those are a couple of examples of medium allegro kind of pieces.
Yeah, I think the difference between Petit allegro and medium allegro is there's just a little bit more like rhythm and movement behind it. So Petit allegro feels very like linear to me, and allegro has a little bit more of like a rhythm and a drive to it. So typically have those combinations either moving side to side or maybe on a diagonal. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple of Grand Allegro pieces, and we're going to start with Nirvana from the 90s. So big waltz. 1, 2, 1, and 1. Okay, here we go. Okay, there's a big waltz, and I reckon 90% of Grand Allegro exercises have got that kind of thing going on. Some of these tracks, I'm actually playing some musical theatre songs now. This is from Hamilton. If you think about something like that, it's got a massive lift on the 1. And when we were doing the R&D music, we realized that actually children responded to an orchestra going bang. You know, imagine the bass drum on the downbeat. So what I think is often useful in a ballet class is to have piano at the bar, and then when you really want the children to leap around, use some orchestral music. And particularly kind of Tchaikovsky and all this music that's designed for people to leap to. because it really does make a massive difference if you've got a brass section going boom on the downbeat. It's so hard a pianist can hit the piano in the bottom of it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I tried to demonstrate. The first Grand Allegro that you played was like a very beginner level Grand Allegro. So run, 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 grand jeté on count 3. So change of location, moved into a boardroom away from the studio, so you can have a little discussion about picking picking music for your ballet class. And so there are a couple of points that I want to talk through, and then Andrew will have a couple additional things. But one is that each combination that you have in your class, you must have a track of music for. It helps you kind of plan your class as well. Like, okay, I'm going to do 10 combinations in my hour-long class with my beginner ballets, and you have a track for each combination. It's very organized. But I would also highly recommend reusing music, because students get familiar, especially if you're like teaching different rhythms. You have them clap one day, then the next class you do stomp, clap, clap, stomp, whatever. And then they get really familiar with that music, maybe for, I don't know, a month, 2 or 3, and then you change your music up. But it's totally fine to reuse your music, because it helps the students learn and become familiar with the tracks. Second point is test your music before you go into class. So you want to make sure that you have enough music to do your entire combination. So just say you want to repeat a combination 4 times. Just say skip, 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 hold, 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 skip, whatever. You want to do that 4 times. How awkward if you can only do it twice and you're like, oh, wait, hold on, I need to go back to the stereo and press play again. That's going to ruin the whole flow. It's going to not help the students really understand and get the most out of the exercise. So know your combinations, listen to the entire track of music, and make sure you have it all. And then third point is picking musics of different tempos. So in the previous chat, we talked about different tempos, different styles and types of music and how they can differentiate. But now you're actually picking music for your combinations. So I would typically recommend slower tempos, especially for beginner students, to really focus on technique and placement. You don't want them to get really stressed with fast music unless you're breaking it down. So if you're doing dun, 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 type music and rhythm, break it down. Dun, dun, dun is like Tendu and 5th. So just break it down if the music is faster, but slower movement or slower tempo. Quicker helps students with creating dynamic movement. So that'd be like a Grand Allegro. You'd want that to be a little bit faster, maybe, if you want them to do bigger movements. And then you can also progress. So start a combination when you teach it to them slowly, do it for a couple of weeks, and then do the same combination to faster music, and then see how they do it. And it also helps them understand how to do same combination to different types of music. So those are my tips for picking class music. Andrew, do you have anything?
I've got a few thoughts. So I think when you're looking for music, you need to be, when I was preparing music for the RAD, it was that we focused a lot on age and what children would expect to be listening to at the age of 8, or then the age of 12, the age of 16, or whatever. You need to kind of know your students and think, because the music you play for a class of younger children won't be the same as you would choose for an adult class. Adults would probably be more inclined to respond to pop music and to maybe very classical music, and to musical theatre. So if you've got a particularly theatrical group of students, I suggest you find songs from musical theatre or music from musical theatre. I will say a little bit about the music that I've done online, because there's quite a lot of it. I've been doing it for 10 years. And I have done quite a lot of pop music, which is what I call reimagined for ballet class. And quite a lot of theatrical music. I've got 3 CDs called Movies and Musicals. I've done quite a lot of classical music reimagined. So that's stuff you wouldn't normally dance to, like Mozart, Bach, Beethoven. But it's split into groups of 8, like we were talking about earlier. So it's predictable, and and it's all at the correct speed. So you should be able to do your jumps at the right speed. What else would I suggest? What I've done in the past is I've sequenced music in class order on an album. Most ballet pianists do this, that record their own music. You don't have to stick with that. You can use your port de bras music for an adage. So I think that if you want to switch things around a bit, change music around for different exercises, use Grand Allegro music for Grand Battement or something like that. what else can I say about music? I've made 3 albums for very young children called Adventures in Preschool Dance, which are lots of fun and they are very age specific. So you wouldn't try that with 9-year-olds. But there's lots of games, clapping games, lots of games about musicality. So things like wobble, creep, or bounce. You've got to listen to the music, then you've got to respond with what you know. Is it a wobbly sound? Ooh. Or is it a creepy sound, or is it a bouncy sound? You know, that kind of thing. So lots of games are on these albums for developing musicality from a very young age. I'd say also that R.E.D. music can be really, really good. I don't know how international it is. I know some countries absolutely love it and some don't use it at all. So your access to R.E.D. music might be limited, but if you consider that grades 1 to 5, which are kind of the main grades that most children do with the R.E.D., have got a massive amount of waltzes, mazurkas, you know, polonaises, jigs, everything you could want. They're all played on piano and an orchestra. So the English National Ballet Orchestra that we recorded. So that's quite interesting. That's quite a good resource for music. Looking online for actual sheet music, go to the R.E.D. website. That will be my recommendation. I don't work for the R.E.D., but they have got a lot of educational stuff on there, which is really, really good. So I think that's about it. I suppose that I'd also mention that Facebook is very powerful in learning from other teachers, and this kind of thing, what we've been doing today, I think has been very useful. So I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, and we will have the link to Andrew's music and also links out to other recommended tracks on Spotify. I know people use different platforms, different countries. So yeah, just know there is a huge range, especially if you just type in ballet music. There are plentitude of options. But Andrew, do you have any recommendations for maybe keywords to search on Google or Bing or whatever it is you're using as your search engine?
Yeah, I would. There's one other thing I was going to say, actually. I've just remembered. Don't you assume the music from ballets, specifically direct, don't type in Swan Lake, because you may find that the phrases aren't the length that you're expecting them to be. You know, that music is intended for performance. It's not intended for class. So really, to make Swan Lake work in a class, you either need a teacher who's going to anticipate, prepare all the phrasing beforehand, or you need someone like me who chops it into 8s and 16s. So don't necessarily just go to Swan Lake or Sleeping Beauty or Romeo and Juliet and expect to be able to use it immediately in class. I think if you search in Spotify or Amazon or whatever for the exercise name, I think that's a good place to start. Type in battement tendus or just tendus or whatever, fondues, and then you'll get, you know, all the a huge array of music. I think it's much easier now to source music for ballet class than it used to be, partly because a lot of pianists like me, musicians like me, are making it, partly because you can search. You don't need to buy this CD and then use it for a year. And, you know, you can use different music every week if you want. And I know a lot of teachers do. Some don't. There are advantages to sticking with music for a term and then changing. There are advantages to keeping children, you know, on the ball by changing the music. You know, do an exercise one week and then say next week we're going to try it to a different piece of music. It's the same exercise. And actually what we did for the R.E.D. was that we had an A and a B for everything. So there was an A piece of music, which for port de bras, let's say, and then the B piece of music was the same kind of thing. The same dance was to be done to it, but it had a different feel and it would bring out different things in the dancer. So that's another kind of interesting thing to consider. While you're developing steps, you might not want to necessarily think about that all the time, but just bear it in mind, because talking about developing musicality, there's nothing that develops musicality better than changing the music and going, right, got to dance to that now. You know, same steps, different feel. Listen to the music, respond to it. So yeah, that, I mean, search for my name if you want, Andrew Holdsworth. I'm sure you'll find an awful lot of music out there.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for sharing this incredible, like, it's an intro to ballet music, but it's also just such a well-rounded like introduction to music in general. So thank you so much for sharing this. And I hope you, the teachers out there watching this, benefited and pulled some new information that you can share with your students and learn something new yourself. So thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy taking the course.
Thank you.